guys, and welcome to another episode of, I need my coffee. Another episode of Cat Chats. I haven't done a Cat Chats video in a while. This is my Cat Chats corner. I spoke about it in my last Cat Chats video. If you guys have been watching my videos for a long time, Cat Chats is just basically where I sit here and I just talk about crap. My last Cat Chats video, I was showing you guys pictures of me growing up, and I got really requested to do a part 2 to that. So leave me a comment down below letting me know if you guys want to see a part 2 to like reacting to old photos. I did mention in my last Cat Chats video that my next one would be like on positivity and on how to stay happy and how I stay happy, like things that I do in my life to stay happy and just a positive video. But I don't know if that would be too boring or if anybody would be interested in that. So that is the second question I have for you today. Is that a potential Cat Chats video you would like to see? Something like that on like happiness and stuff? Leave me a comment down below. But like I was saying earlier, today is like a spin-off-ish, even though it's not. That makes no sense. One of my Cat Chats videos from way before, I told you guys stories. I titled it Story Time, and I told you guys like little itty-bitty stories of like my childhood and things that happened to me in high school and little things like that. And that's kind of what I'm doing today, only I'm telling you one story. Porter, if you knock down my lights. Porter. Oh, look at that little face. Look at that little face. Oh, look at that little face. In today's video, I'm just telling you one story. So today we will talk about this story. And actually, this is not a funny story. If you were here just to laugh, you're probably not gonna laugh. It's not a funny story. It's just the weirdest thing ever. It's like this random crap that happened to me and my cousin in my life, and we cannot live it down. Like we talk about it all the time. It's something that we will never let go. So now that I have the longest intro ever, let's get into the story. You're probably wondering why I titled this that. Okay, so I was about like 17 years old when this happened, and the main person in the story besides me is my cousin Janine. I have spoken about Janine many times in Cat Chats videos. We were together 24/7 growing up, so a lot of the things that happened to me and Janine was a part of. I had a very strict father. I still kind of do. But I have a very, very strict father. I wasn't allowed to do anything. I was like in captivity all the time. My friends used to make fun of me. I've told you guys this before, but they used to call my house the force field that I wasn't allowed to leave in. People would come over. My dad loved it when my friends came over, but he didn't like it when I left. So I was in the force field a lot. So one day Janine is at my house. Again, I'm 17. She is 19, 18 or 19. We're like a year and a few months apart. And my parents are home, and my dad is like, hey, me and your mom are gonna go out and we're gonna be out all day, so stay here, do not go anywhere, do not open the door to anyone, just don't move. I don't know if Janine had her car yet, but I'm pretty sure she didn't. So we stayed in my house. My dad was like, do not open the door to anyone. Like he made it very clear that I was not allowed to leave that house. Me or Janine. So we were like, yeah, okay, yeah. So my parents left, they were gone for like a few hours, and Janine and I got like really, really hungry, and there was nothing in my house. Like we had no food, and we were like, crap, we are starving. So Janine's like, okay, just order pizza, right? Let's just order pizza. And I was like, that's great, except my dad doesn't let me open the door to anybody, so how are we gonna order pizza? So it became like this big joke. Me and Janine were laughing like, oh, you know what would be great if we ordered pizza? And we told the guy to come to my window, because if we get the pizza through the window, technically, I'm not opening the door to a stranger. So we thought that was a brilliant idea. We thought it was the funniest thing ever. And we were like, yeah, let's do it. Let's order pizza and tell the guy to come to the window. So I had a window in my room, very similar to this, but it was really high off the ground. Like, for some reason, it was at like the top of my ceiling. Like my window was really little, but high up on my wall. Really weird. So my bed was underneath it. So like, I had my bed here, and then my window was here. Does that make sense? Yeah, my bed was right here, and the window was like there. Okay. So my mom, I don't know if this is like a Hispanic thing, but all of my windows had screens on them. Like if we were prisoners, like screens. I know it's so that you could open the window and the mosquitoes don't come in, because there are a million mosquitoes in South Florida, like they eat you alive. So we all had screened in windows. So I opened my window, right? I lifted up, stoot, I don't know what that was. And I'm like, oh crap, Janine, I have a screen on my window. I completely forgot. How are we gonna get the pizza if there's a screen on my window? So I'm like, oh, don't worry, I got this covered. I'll just push the screen out, no big deal. So I'm trying to push the screen. Janine is sitting on my bed watching me do this. And I'm pushing the screen and I'm pushing the screen, and this screen is stuck. So I'm like, we need to push this screen out in order to get this pizza. So Janine is like helping me push the screen. We're trying to get it. And I was gonna like push it out and then grab it and bring it into my room. And then when the pizza arrived, get the pizza and then take the screen out and put it right back in. But that didn't happen. So as I'm trying to fix this screen, like it finally pops out and then falls to the ground. And I'm like, oh, shh. So the screen is now on the ground. This story actually sounds so crazy, and when I get to the end, you'll understand why nobody believed us. So the screen fell to the floor, and Janine's like, just go outside, go through the front door, and get the screen. It's not a big deal, right? So I'm like, fine. So I go outside, and this is what my house looked like. This is the front door, and my room was on the side of the house, like right here. So I go to the front door, and I'm making my way downtown, walking. Just kidding. I'm making my way around the house to grab the screen and put it and give it to Janine through the window. And as I'm walking out of the door, I notice these two guys come up to my house in a car. So as they're pulling up to my house, I immediately recognize them. And one of the guys was actually somebody I was seeing, or not seeing, but I was talking to. Somebody I was like sort of dating, but since I wasn't really allowed to date, I wasn't really dating. You know what I mean? I was kind of talking to him, but not really. And it was his friend. It was him and his friend. So this person was out of their mind, by the way. This guy was like crazy, very spontaneous, like insane. So he pulls up to my house and I freak out because my parents aren't home. Well, I freak out because he's at my house, which is really weird, but he pulls up to my house and I walk outside of the door, and instead of turning around, because you know, I'm impulsive and I'm super crazy. So instead of walking out of the door, seeing them pull up and run back inside the house and close the door and go tell Janine, like freaking out, I decide to run to the window. Like I go outside, I see them pull out, and then I just run to the side of the window, like where my room is, to pick up the screen. So when I get to this story, I'm sorry if I'm losing you guys, it's like the weirdest thing ever. So when I get to the window, I'm like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And Janine is in my room watching me on top of my bed, you know, like watching me through the window. I'm outside, she's inside. She's like, what is wrong? What is wrong? And I'm like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I'm like freaking out, I can barely talk. And she's like, what is happening? What's wrong? I'm gonna call him Fabio. I'm like, Fabio is here with his friend. Fabio just pulled up to my house with his friend. Fabio is here. And she's like, what the hell? What? Fabio is here. So we start to freak out. So then Fabio gets out of the car, pulls up to my house, gets out of the car with his friend, and starts walking towards me, starts walking to the side of my house. Before I get into it, let me tell you really quickly a little situation. So my grandmother lives with me, sort of. Growing up, I always had like a really big backyard. Our house was very small, but our yard was really big. So when my grandfather passed away, my dad built like a home for my grandmother in my backyard. It's a 1-bedroom apartment. It has a kitchen, a bathroom, like the room, and then a living room. So it's like a full-on 1-bedroom house in our backyard. It's like an efficiency. I don't know if everybody calls it that, or is that like a Hispanic word, efficiency? It's like a studio apartment, whatever. So that's in our backyard. And she would get to her house through the side of my house because it had its own little walkway, its own little entrance. I had a green bench right under my window. It was like a plastic green bench that I would sit outside and read books when I was younger. Not younger, like in high school. I would go outside like on a good day and I would just sit on my bench and I would read books. And my grandma would also use that to put all her groceries on before she brought it into the house. I hope you're following. So my grandma was the one who initially put that bench there. She was like, hey, do you mind if I, in Spanish, but she was like, hey, do you mind if I put this here to put my groceries? I was like, no, perfect. 2 birds with 1 stone. I could sit there outside and read my books. So we did that forever, for like years. My green bench was always there for years. Anyway, back to the story. So I see Fabio coming up to me with his friend, and I'm panicking. I was very, I don't know how to explain it, but I didn't do really good in boy situations. So he's coming up to me and I'm like sweating at this point. My face is bright red. Not because, oh my god, Fabio is at my house, but because, oh my god, Fabio's at my house and my dad is not here. And if my dad gets here, he's gonna kill Fabio. He's gonna shoot him. He's gonna kill him. And then kill me. So he walks up to me and the first thing I blurt out of my mouth is, oh my god, you have to leave. You have to get out of here. And he's like, hey, you know, we were in the neighborhood and we just stopped by to say hi, which was really nice. Okay, awesome, yeah. And I was like, that's great, get out. And he's like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, you need to leave, you gotta get out of here because my dad isn't here, my mom's not here, and if they get home and they see you here, they are gonna flip their shit. You need to leave my house. And he was like, okay. And then I hand Janine the screen. And since I was so nervous and I was so freaked out, I go in through the window. I don't walk them to the car and then go inside my house through the front door like a normal person. I literally throw myself in to my room by the window. And Fabio is kind of like standing there like, you know, you have a front door. And I'm like, okay, bye, see you, bye, text me later. It was like the weirdest moment ever. I don't even know why. I just threw myself through the window, and here Janine is like grabbing my butt and my jeans and like trying to squeeze me into the window because I had to get on top of my bench to get in the window, because I mentioned earlier that my window was really high off the ground for some strange reason, even though it was a one-story house. So Janine is like grabbing my butt and lifting me into the window. I had to get on the bench and then throw myself in. It was just the weirdest situation that I panicked in. Yeah, that happened. And then Fabio left and went on his merry way. We popped the screen back in and we forgot about it. My parents brought us food when they got home, and you know, the day was over. Wrong. Then the next day, Janine comes over my house again, or she slept over. I'm not exactly sure. It was all a blur, so I don't know. She was either sleeping over or she came over again, and we're just hanging out and just talking, and then she gets a phone call from her dad. He calls her and I hear him, like it's very loud, you know, like she didn't have it on speaker, but I could hear him. And he's like, hey, what were you doing yesterday? And she's like, nothing, I was at Kathleen's house. And he's like, did you go anywhere? And she's like, no, we just stayed here all day. And he's like, you're not lying to me, right? And she's like, no, I was at Kathleen's house. And he was like, okay, I believe you. And she was like, okay. And then they hung up. And Janine was like, that is so weird. My dad is never weird like that. That is so strange. And I'm like, what? But we kind of brushed it under the rug. We were like, maybe he was just worried or asking. I don't know. We let it go. Then the next day, these are little events that started happening. So then the next day, or like the day after, I go outside and I notice my bench is gone. My green bench. I went outside to read a book and my bench was no longer there. A bench that had been there for years. And I'm like, what the heck? Where is my bench? So I go to my grandma's house and ask her, I'm like, ¿qué pasó? You know, like what is happening? Fine. I was ordered to take the bench away. I was ordered to remove it. And I was like, by who? And she's like, by your aunt, her daughter, my dad's sister. And I was like, excuse me? What the hell does she have to do? What? So I was very confused. So then the following day, I go to my cousin's house, my aunt's house with all my cousins. And my cousin tells me, she's like, hey, I know what you did last weekend or whatever. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she like tells me in secret, she's like, I heard that you, listen to this. She's like, I heard that you and Janine snuck out of your house at 3 in the morning with 2 boys. I literally, like, my jaw dropped. I was like, what? I honestly could not believe it. I ran to my aunt's room and I was like, who told you that? Because my cousin told me that because her aunt, whatever. So I was like, what? Who told you that? And she was like, I heard, but don't worry, I haven't told your parents. Nobody knows. I sat there for like 2 hours trying to defend me and Janine. I was like, we would never, what? Whatever. I was like, okay, yeah, 2 guys did come to my house, but it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, not 2 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't leave with them. I stayed at my house. They were there for literally, guys, they were there for like 3 minutes. So I did not know how this happened or how anybody found out or like invented the story, because they were there for about 3 minutes. So I explained to them exactly what happened, and they were like, oh, they were looking at me. Honestly, if I would have heard this story, I wouldn't have believed it either. Like, yeah, I pushed the screen out because I was going to order pizza, and then I ran outside through the front door, and then 2 guys just showed up at my house. And then instead of going through the front door, I threw myself through the window. Who is going to believe that? Because I wouldn't either. So my family, my cousins were like, yeah, sure. Nobody believed me. I called Janine and I told her story, and then it all starts to click. Janine's like, that is why my dad asked me what I was doing that day, and that is why they took the bench away. They took the bench away because they think you are using that bench as a stepping stool to escape in the middle of the night. And I was like, oh my god. It blew my mind, especially since Janine and I were such good, we still are, we're kids, we're good kids. We never broke the rules. Janine and I are like good, like little innocent, like daughters. We never did anything wrong. But it still didn't make sense how my aunt knew, because we were completely by ourselves that day. So we sat down and we were like breaking our heads, like who could have told her? Nobody. It was just me, Janine, Fabio and his friend. And Fabio and his friend didn't know my aunt, you know? So we were like, oh my God, what happened? You know, it was like 2 weeks where we didn't know who told my aunt. So whatever, so like 2 weeks later, I'm talking to Fabio, and I didn't want to tell him the story because I didn't want him to think that like he got me in trouble. So I didn't tell him anything. And then he sends me a text message. Like when we started talking again, he sends me a text message. He's like, hey, your neighbor seems like a real nice guy. And I'm like, come again? He's like, yeah, when I was leaving, that your neighbor was standing at the fence, like staring at us. And then as I was leaving, I waved at him and he waved back. As we drove off, I was like, immediately, the first thing that came into my head, I called Janine the second he texted me that. So I told her the story and she's like, what the hell? Which is crazy because this guy has been my neighbor since I was a little girl. I lived in the same house my entire life till I got married and moved out. That was my home forever. And this guy, for as long as I can remember, has been my neighbor. I'm gonna call him Ass Face. So I was like, can you believe Ass Face? Ass Face is the link in the Ass Face. It was Ass Face. And she's like, I can't believe it. What the hell? He completely made that up. That is insane. Because either he's out of his mind or he's a liar, because it was clearly like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He's either completely crazy and really truly believed that it was midnight or whatever. The only way that I can think that Ass Face came up with that story is because he probably saw 2 boys. He probably came outside while Fabio and his friend were leaving, and then he saw me go into my window. That is the only thing that I can think of. That he walked out the second these guys got back in their car, and he saw me freak out and throw myself in the window, and then he saw Janine helping me in. So he was like, oh, these girls must have been gone, and now is when they're getting home. Maybe he thought we were gone all night, and then 2 o'clock in the afternoon is when we got home. I don't know. I don't know what Ass Face was thinking. You know, you would think that everything was perfectly fine, but no. Till this day, I am 23 years old. Till this day, my aunt's husband, like my uncle, he says it as a joke, but he calls us the window hose. Which seems kind of messed up, but it really bothered us in the beginning, but it's funny now since it's like, I don't know, 7 years later, 6 years later, whatever. He will not stop referring to us as window hose, and it's been like that for the past 6 years. Every time we're in a room together and he sees us, he calls us window hose. Because I don't think that they ever believed us. Used to be kind of frustrating, now is kind of funny to me. No one would ever believe that story, ever. Why would I throw myself inside the window? There was a door. That completes this Cat Chats story. I promise you my other Cat Chats videos will be more entertaining. I just wanted to tell you guys this story. I'm thinking of doing a story time Cat Chats and then a picture one again, and then that positivity one if you guys want to, and like maybe like boy stories and stuff. So let me know what you would like to see, and leave me a comment down below of something super awkward that happened to you in high school or while you're in high school or middle school. Something really awkward that happened. I want to know your awkward stories because I have been in the most awkward situations in my entire life. Always. Yeah, my life is one awkward moment. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.